I'm going to shift gears. I've been preaching on agape love for 7 or 8 weeks. I forgot, I lost track of where I just started on January 1st, and I preached through. So I'm going to do a teaching here because some other people are going to be speaking here for the next 2 weeks. But I wanted to talk on something here that's very, very important for us as a church body. So let me start here with this. How many of you know Barry Sanders? Who knows Barry Sanders? Who's Barry Sanders? Somebody raise their hand. He's a former running back for the Detroit Lions. How many of you remember Barry Sanders? All right, so yeah, Barry Sanders. But that's not the Barry Sanders that I'm talking about. So I like Barry Sanders. He was really a good running back. So anyway, there's another Barry Sanders, and it's this guy right here. So he's a professor of English and history at a college down by Riverside. And so if you got a bulletin, if everybody got a bulletin, I don't know if everybody got a bulletin. I wrote a little excerpt in the bulletin, and I had a bulletin with me a while ago, and I guess it disappeared, but I got it right here in my hands, what I wrote in the bulletin. Anyway, I lose stuff. That's okay. I got the notes right here. Thank you so much. So Barry Sanders. Why is Barry Sanders well known? Well, Barry Sanders, his kind of claim to fame for a lot of different reasons was he wrote a book called A is for Ox. It was a very well-known book. Went around. It was a very powerful book. It was not a Christian book. But he said some very powerful things in there, and I encourage you to read it. It's kind of a hard read. He deals with some real big concepts, but his message is very, very powerful. And the subtitle of the book is called The Collapse of Literacy, the Ability to Read and Write, and the Rise of Violence in an Electronic Age. Do you realize in the first 3 weeks of this year, our country had 40 mass shootings? And right after that, we had 3 mass shootings here in this state. We had people just south of here on Tulare, 6 people were executed. And then 7 people were killed in Half Moon Bay. And then 11 people were killed somewhere down south, I think Monterey Park or south. I don't remember where it was, somewhere south. So last year, I forgot the number. It was like our country had 600 mass shootings. 4 more people being killed or injured in shootings. And we just had one, I think just a couple of days ago, right? Another one in Mississippi. 6 people got shot and killed. And so we have this culture today where our kids can't read or write, but they can kill one another. And we have a very violent culture. And so I want you to take the bulletin, if you have it there, and there's a little section there called the Pastor's Corner. I don't know if you guys read that. I took a lot of time to write this out. You guys just throw it in the trash. But anyway. So this I'm going to read it here. In 1994, Barry Sanders, professor of English and history at Pitzer College in Claremont, published a book with a catchy title, A is for Ox. The subtitle is Revealing the Collapse of Literacy and the Rise of Violence in an Electronic Age. Dr. Sanders shows how our children no longer know how to read and write. Especially today, we let our children play all day with iPads, cell phones, and video games. Our kids now need the constant stimulation of electronic games and images. They no longer interact with our language. More importantly, they no longer interact with us, the parents. They don't even know how to write, many of them, and read. We have some very smart kids, by the way. Raina's a very smart young lady, and she's still going to Fresno State, right? Yeah, so Raina's going to Fresno State. So very smart kids. But we have some very smart kids, but, man, our culture of being raised up, people can't even read and write. I got a text from a lady. It's a lady that she only texts me when she gets in trouble. And she doesn't come to our church. She comes maybe every year or two, but she'll send me a text when she's in trouble. And man, I have to pray in the name of Jesus to understand what she says, because she goes BTW, IDK, and she uses all these things, and for the word for, F-O-R, she uses the number 4, and for Y-O-U, she uses a U. And I got to sit there trying to decipher that, and I didn't even know all of those things, so I got to Google to find out what these abbreviations, these acronyms are for these letters that she's writing. And I'm thinking, man, and I realized this lady can't write. She can't write. So it's interesting the way our culture is today. And I say here, I want to encourage parents who have children and grandparents with grandkids. Move them away from relating to electronic gadgets and get them relating to you and books. Sit down with them at a dinner table and eat together without phones. Read a book out loud with them in the living room. Take your children to the local public library. What is that? And let them check books out that interest them. Let them develop a love for reading. Because once a person loves reading, he or she will educate themselves forever. Their minds will develop much better. Sit down and read the Bible together and discuss what you're reading. Interact with your children. Pray with them at night before they go to bed. Talk to them while their cell phones are in their pockets. Cell phones and tablets have become the modern-day idols of this high-tech culture. They don't need more gadgets. They need you. Teach them to read so that they can learn to write. Professor Dorothy Armstrong, she's a professor of English at Purdue University, and I took a class with her on writing because I like to write. And she says, great readers make great writers. If you want to learn how to write better, you need to become a better reader. And have you noticed something about reading? Reading forces you to be quiet. I think my wife likes it when I read. I got to sit down at a recliner and I read. And it forces us to be quiet. And if you can get your kids to sit down and read and allow them to think and allow them to use their mind, it's a very powerful thing. And you know what? When you look at it, Jesus Christ, he came at just the right time. Jesus Christ, I'm glad he did not come right now. Because if he would have come, we would have put him on Spotify, on YouTube, on a podcast, on Facebook Live. We would have sent him an email. It would have been a mess. And you know what? He came at just the right time. Not a minute too soon, not a minute too late. Galatians 4:4 says, when the fullness of time had come, God sent his Son, born of a woman, born under law, to redeem us. It was perfectly timed. And you know what? Back then, there was only one real powerful means of communication that lasted for a long time, and that was to write it down. And that's why in the fullness of time, way back nearly 2,000 years ago, this all got finalized, and God waited. Everything was perfectly in place. The right language was in that culture for him to write his final revelation, his final word to us. I am so glad that the New Testament was not originally written in Chinese. I'm so glad it wasn't written in German or even in Spanish. God picked the perfect language. He picked the Greek language, which is a very powerful and precise language to express the final revelation of Jesus Christ and who he is. And God, isn't that amazing that a man on top of a mountain in the Middle East 3,500 years ago wrote stuff down. And God even burned it on tablets so we wouldn't forget it. And Joshua and David and Abraham and all these prophets were writing, and the apostles were there, and they wrote, and they heard what Jesus said, and they wrote it all down in a word. And they got this revelation, and they wrote it all down, so now it could speak to us forever. Because once you write it down, it speaks forever. That's why I write. That's why my whole focus, I do teaching here on Sunday morning, but my whole focus is writing, because once you write it down, you can teach forever. If you record a sermon here, it just goes in one ear and out another. But when you write it down, it's going to teach forever. And that's why God wrote this down for us. He didn't write it so we could walk around with it under our arm, or so we can have it and blow dust off of it when it's there on our table or our coffee table. He gave it to us for one reason and one reason only, so you could read it and meditate on it and learn from it and know who the living God really is. And so in teaching your kids to read, you're not just trying to get them educated. You want to give them a love for reading, so when they turn to this book, they're going to love this book too. A lot of people, the reason they don't read is they don't like to read. They've been taught not to read. They've been raised that way. And so he wrote it so we could read it. And that's a really important key for us today. Years ago, a pastor friend of mine called me. He says, can I meet with you? I need your advice. I said, sure, come on over. So he came over, and we stood back there where the table is, right there in front of the missions board. We stood the whole time. We never sat down. We stood, and we talked for like 2 hours. He says, I've got a problem. I go, what is it? He says, I've got a problem in my house. And I go, well, what's going on? He says, well, when my daughter gets home, my youngest daughter gets home, she quickly grabs something to eat, and she goes into her room, and she flips open her laptop, and she starts doing her homework, and then the rest of the night she's on social media, and she's emailing, and she's doing all kinds of stuff online. I don't even know who she's talking to. And she says, and when my son gets home, he grabs something real quick to eat out of the pantry, and he likes video games. And right after he finishes his homework, he goes and he plays video games till late in the night. And then my oldest daughter, she was going to one of the colleges here. I'm not sure which one it was. She was going to one of the colleges. When she gets home, she does the same thing. She goes into her room, and she flips open her laptop or her tablet, and she starts doing all of her stuff and getting all that stuff done there in her room. And he goes, then my wife comes home, and she works in the computer field. And so when she gets home, she grabs something out of the refrigerator, pops it in the microwave real quick, and then sits down, and she lays down on the couch with a laptop on her table because she's got to respond to all these emails that her boss has sent her since she came home, and she's got to respond to all these coworker emails and everything, so she's there all the time. He says, and when I get home, I go to the master bedroom, and I'm tired, and I just want to relax. And so he goes, I flip open my laptop, and I get all the news feeds, and I got to find out what happened during the day, and I read ESPN, and then I watch a little comedy thing, and then I watch a YouTube video, and then he said this to me. He says, you know what? We used to all meet together and eat together. We used to meet together in the living room as a family and pray together. And he says, now none of us are ever together. And he said to me, he says, you know what? My children are being influenced by all these influencers and by all their friends, and I almost have no influence in their lives. Now, if you think I'm here to preach against cell phones and I'm here to preach against the internet and all that. I use all that stuff just like you use all that stuff. In fact, I just got a new phone, a brand new one, a nice one. Don't you try to take my phone. I went over there, man. I went over there to the AT&T store, and when that lady saw my old phone, she laughed out loud. And I go, man, I'm just barely walking in here, and you're already laughing at me. She goes, I'm not laughing at you. I'm laughing at that phone you have. She goes, I haven't seen one of those phones. She says, it's so old. She says, it's so old. The last time any of us saw that phone was when they were doing a dinosaur dig in the state of Montana. They dug up and they found one of those phones. And I go, it's that old? She goes, yeah, we won't give you a penny for that thing. You can't trade it in for anything. That is so old. She laughed. She goes, I haven't seen one of those phones. It's so old. And I said, well, that's why I'm here, for a new phone. So she gave me a new phone. So I'm not here to talk about all of that. But I want to tell you, we need to learn how to live in this culture. We need to learn how to live in this culture that has robbed us of relationships, robbed us of closeness with one another, robbed us of so many things that we used to have. And I want to talk to you about something that I'm dealing with right now. I asked on January 22nd, a couple weeks ago, we had a church council meeting, and I told the church council, we had a meeting, and then at the end I told them, I take Mondays off. My day off is Monday. I said, but in February, I'm going to take Monday and Tuesday off. I take 2 days for the whole month. I'm going to take Monday and Tuesday, Monday, Tuesday, Monday, Tuesday, Monday, Tuesday, Monday, Tuesday. So I've already been in it now, and I'm in the middle of it. And tomorrow, I'm going to take Monday off, my regular day, and Tuesday off. So, so don't call me. I did something. It's so awesome. I did something yesterday. You can't hear what I did. I turned off every news feed to my phone for 24 hours. And I didn't even have any withdrawal. I didn't hear anything that happened yesterday. Can I tell you something? Well, actually, my wife, we had lunch together yesterday, and she goes, did you hear that former President Jimmy Carter is in hospice care? She told me that. So I got that news feed from my wife yesterday. But I didn't. You know what I want to tell you? What's so awesome? The whole world kept right on turning. And you know what? It didn't hurt me at all to not hear all of that stuff. In fact, I feel pretty good today, having not heard all the killings and murders and earthquakes and all that stuff that's going on. It was really cool yesterday to not have to hear all that stuff for 24 hours. So I'm going to do something tomorrow. I know it's hard, and some of you can't do it. You don't do this. Don't try this. It's too dangerous. I'm going to do it, though. I'm going to go before you. I'm going to be your leader. I'm going to turn off my phone for 24 hours. Now, I know some of you can't. You got business, you got work, you got kids, you got to pick up kids and stuff. I understand it. I get it. I'm going to do it. So don't call me. If you need to say anything, text me tonight. You know, you want to say something to me, you want to call me tonight, because tomorrow it's going off for 24 hours. If you have a problem, call Pastor Rick. He'll take care of you. Don't call me. Pastor Rick, load his phone over with stuff, you know. Don't call me. Don't call me. I'm going to take the day off. This is so funny. One day, there was a lady in the back. She was mad at her daughter. And in the argument that they had, she goes, give me that phone. I'm taking it away from you because I'm mad at you. And she took the phone, and this is the funniest thing. That girl, a young girl, she started twisting. Her eyes started twisting. She started twisting. She was not serious. She started going through withdrawals right there, right in that moment. It was like, I'm She was detoxing right there, right in front of me. She started twitching. I could not believe it. But she was like, you had to see it to believe it. I think some of us, if we turned off our phones, we wouldn't know what to do because we live off of them. I remember the last time I went to Jamaica, because I had to put it on airplane mode for 10 days. Because the service there, they charge you for every megabyte, they charge you like $2.92. I mean, it would have been a $5,000 bill if I would have left my phone on. So I had to turn it off for 10 days. And when I flew back in, I think it was in Carolina or Miami or somewhere, when I flew back in, I turned my phone back on. Bring, 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 bring. I had hundreds of text messages, voicemails, emails. It was ping, 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 ping. I had to turn it off there in the airport. I thought everybody was going to flip out. I was ready to flip out. But then I realized just how busy my life is. How distracted we are with that machine in our hand. How did we do it in the 70s and 80s? How did we do it when there was no cell phone? How did we live? I remember when I went to talk to the youth a couple of years ago, I told them, I said, I am from another age. I'm like a caveman, a Neanderthal that came out of a cave. I told the teens, I said, do you believe it? I multiplied their oldest 18 by 3. I was older than that. I go, I'm more than 3 times as old as you are. And I said, can you believe it? There was no internet when I was growing up in high school. There were no cell phones. There was no ESPN. There was no 5,000 channels on TV. There was nothing like that. And they just sat there, what? What? Yeah, I am a caveman. I came out of another era. And I was trying to teach them something else, but we lived in a different world. It was much, much different than today's world. And so I want to talk to you, it's a short title. I want to talk to you about live quiet lives. And I'm disqualified from teaching this. The only reason I'm teaching it to you today is because I'm the pastor and I decided I was going to teach this today. But I'm disqualified from teaching this because the life of a pastor, you talk to any pastor, they have a lot going on. They have a lot of stuff coming at them from all sides, way beyond what you would know. And I don't say that to have people feel sorry for me. I don't want anybody to feel sorry for me. I always tell people, I love what I do. I can't believe God picked me to come and do this kind of work. I love what I do. But it's hard, it's long, it's all these things, you know. And so I want to talk to you about this. And I just want us to reflect. So I'm going to put up some scriptures on the screen, and Crystal, on the book, if you have a bulletin, it has a little back thing of notes where you can put sermon notes. And so I want you to write down these verses, if you will. And I want you to follow me as I talk about this theme, because the Bible is full of this. And I only picked one kind of theme going through. But if I sat here and talked about contentment or peace or peaceable or calmness, all those kinds of things, we would be here for a long time just looking at even listing all those verses. There's just so many. So I want to go through this. So I'm going to put some scriptures up on the screen, and I'm going to talk about them. So first of all, I want to look at what Paul said here in 1 Thessalonians. He said 2 things here to the Thessalonians, and I want to focus here on this first one in 1 Thessalonians chapter 4 and verse 11, also going into the first part of verse 12, actually. And he says this, he says, make it your goal. How many of you have goals in your life? You have goals in your life. Okay? People have goals. Make it your goal, your ambition, the NIV says, to live a quiet life. And I love these words, Minding your own business. I think this electronic world that we live in, everybody's in everybody's business. That's the problem. We're minding everybody's business. We want to know what everybody's doing. And we don't need to know what everybody, but we feel like we need to know. We got these Twitter accounts. We got all these other accounts, and everybody's pinging us. And I got a text. I got a WhatsApp thing from Jennifer Lopez the other day. It was somebody masquerading as Jennifer Lopez. I told my wife, I go, look, Jennifer Lopez is trying to get a hold of me. Like an idiot. Make it your goal to live a quiet life. Live this. Live it. Live this life. Minding your own business. And then Paul's going to tell you why. Some of you think I'm just here to tell you about, just take a day off. Go on a vacation. That's not. Paul didn't say that. Paul didn't say that, okay, do this by taking a vacation, by taking a few days off and resting or going to the coast. You know why he said? He says, so that your daily life may win the respect of outsiders, of unbelievers. Isn't that amazing? Because I want you to live a quiet life so that your neighbors who are running like crazy and they're busy and running around like crazy, when they see people taking time off and resting in the backyard and enjoying time with their family and relationships, they're going to look and take notice of us because we're so different than them. But can I tell you, brothers and sisters, Christians are just like them. We're busier than they are because they're staying home right now, sleeping in, and you're coming over here, and we do all kinds of ministry and all kinds of stuff. We're even busier than they are. They don't notice any difference between us and them because we look just like them. He says, I want you to do this so that you can be different. And outsiders, unbelievers will look at your life and say, wow. Now I'm gonna skip 2 Thessalonians 3 and come back to it, but I just want to go over real quick to this Sabbath command. Do you guys remember when Moses was up there in Exodus 20 when he was getting the commandments of God there, and God was writing the commandments, the 10 Commandments on the tablets of stone? Do you remember that? In Exodus 20 and verse 8, he says, I want you to remember the Sabbath day. You know why? Because we forget. We run right past it. We're so busy. We don't have time to stop. He goes, I want you to remember the Sabbath day to keep it holy. And then he tells you why you should do this. He gives you the purpose. For in 6 days the Lord made the heavens and the earth, the sea, and all that is in them. But on the seventh day, he rested on the seventh day. Therefore, the Lord blessed that Sabbath day and made it holy. Moses right here, as that was being written down, it was a quote from Genesis chapter 2, right after God created the whole vast array of the creation in 6 days. It says there in Genesis 2, beginning verses, he says, God rested from all of his works that he had done. God rested, and he blessed that day, and he made it holy. He hallowed that day. Do you realize the first thing that God ever made holy was time, a day off, a day of rest? He made that holy. Do you realize that God built into the creation that it would rest, that the land would rest, that your animals would rest, that your people would rest, that the workers would rest, that you and I would rest? And if you are a creature, how many of you here are a creature? You're a creation of God. Who's a creation of God here? He built into you, he made you to rest. And when you don't do that, you're violating what he put into creation. And so before it ever got into the law and became a law, God built it into creation that we were to work 6 days and take a day off. Now notice something that he did. Remember when he was up there on the tablet, when he got the tablets, what happened? What happened when he got up there? An emergency broke out. What happened when he was up there on top of the mountain? What happened? Do you remember? The golden calf was being, the very first commandment, thou shalt have no other gods, they were breaking it down there. So he comes down, and he broke the tablet and the whole thing. And so you go to Deuteronomy. Deuteros means second, and nomos means law. So God had to give the law again because he broke the tablets, and so he had to give it again. So in Deuteronomy 5, almost 40 years later, at the end of their wandering, God gives them to it again, the Ten Commandments, all over again. That's why it's called Deuteronomy. It's the second time God had to give the law. And this time, all the commandments were the same, but he made a change the second time on the Sabbath. And he said, I want you to, Deuteronomy 5, 12, and 15, he says, observe the Sabbath to keep it holy as the Lord your God commanded you. And this time he doesn't quote what happened in creation. He goes, don't you remember that you were a slave in the land of Egypt? And the Lord had to bring you out of there with a mighty hand and an outstretched arm. He goes, do you remember what it was like in Egypt when you worked 7 days a week and the taskmasters kept you working and working and working and working and working and whipped you and whipped you? Do you guys remember that? I brought you out of that. So I want you to keep my Sabbath because you're not slaves anymore. And you talk to Christians today, and I ask them, what's your schedule like? And they go, well, I take a day off. Tell me when you take a day off. And they go, well, Monday through Friday I work. And Sunday I'm here at church, and I got all this stuff going on. But I take Saturdays off, Pastor Charlie. I take my Saturday off. I go, tell me what your Saturday's like. Well, I mow the lawn. I wash the dishes. I wash clothes. I clean the backyard. I clean out the garage. I go shopping. I take care of all the stuff I couldn't. I go, you're not resting for 1 minute. You're tired. You're working 7 days a week. Brothers and sisters, we have to have a better testimony than the world. We have to have a better testimony. It's quiet in here. Why is it quiet in here? I want you guys to say amen or something. Acknowledge me. You know, why? Why are we no different than the world? We don't live quiet lives. We're busier than they are. Wendy, we ought to look at them and see how they're at least sleep a little bit. I want to go back. This is an amazing verse here in 2 Thessalonians 3, 11 and 12. Notice these words. He says, you are idle, but you are busybodies. What a contradiction. You're idle, but you're busybodies. You know what that's telling me? You're doing a whole bunch of stuff, but you're getting nothing done. You're just busy. You're a busybody. You're taking your body everywhere. You're minding everybody else's business. You're everywhere. You're going all over the world. You're on the treadmill. You can't get off. You're running and running and running and running and running. He goes, but you're getting nothing done. He says, you're idle, but you're busybody. He goes, now those that are like that, he goes, we command you, we exhort you, through our Lord Jesus Christ. Man, you can't get more authoritative than that. He says that they work in quietness and eat their own bread. I believe there's a difference between work, genuine work, and busyness. We got to go to work. We need to work hard. We need to be hardworking people, but we also need to rest well. And most of us, we don't rest well at all. And busyness is just being busy. And I just want to say my goal, your goal, is not to be busy, but to be productive, to be fruitful. And we're going to talk about that here in just a minute. Not just busy, not just running around, but are we actually connecting with people, our kids, our family, our relationships, the Lord, spending time with Him? Are we actually really doing that? When God told Israel about all this, the commandment, the Sabbath, remember what He said to them? And that was one of the few commandments that had the death penalty. Did you guys realize that? Over and over in Exodus, He says, anyone that works, kill them. They're dead. Cut them off from my people. God was really, really serious. And by the way, you guys know why they went into Babylonian captivity for 70 years. They violated the Sabbath. They violated for 490 years, and God did the math. He divided by 7, and He got 70. And so he goes, I'm going to send you 70 years to Babylon so the land can rest because you guys won't be here working it. And he left them over there for 70 years. And I tell you right now, all of us, I'm going to say it very strongly to you, you will go into captivity in your busyness and overwork. You will be in Babylon wondering, where's the Lord? Why do I keep falling into these sins? Why do I keep faltering? Why am I so anxious? Why am I always tired? Why can't I defeat these things? You never stop long enough to have God speak to your heart. We don't listen. We're no different than the world. Paul said one of the reasons why we should pray for our governing authorities and kings in 1 Timothy 2:2, pray for kings and all those who are in authority. Why? So that we may live peaceful and quiet lives in all godliness and holiness. You can't live peacefully and quietly when there's all this perversion that's coming around us. And that's why we do need to pray for our kings and for those who are in authority. I love some words that are here in the prophet Isaiah. Isaiah 32, verses 17 through 18. These are such beautiful phrases for me. The fruit of righteousness will be peace. The effect, or what it will produce of righteousness will be quietness and confidence forever. And he says, my people will live in peaceful dwelling places, in secure homes. And I love this phrase, in undisturbed places of rest. Is your house peaceful and restful? Or are people running in and running out and running in and running out and running in and running out and running in and running out? I'm going to say this to you. Righteousness has been here twice. Right living. You can tell you're living right because it's peaceful around you. You can tell you're living right because it's undisturbed. You're not restless. You're at peace because you're living right. Maybe the reason why we're so anxious and medicated and every child now, and I'm not trying to offend anybody or hurt anybody, but all these kids, when they sit, they can't sit still. They jump around, and they go to a psychiatrist, and all. The psychiatrist doesn't have some test to tell you what's wrong with your kid. He looks at it, and he got ADHD. Let's give him some pills. He's got this, and he's got that, and he's got this, and he's got that. And I remember another boy that had this too. He can't sit, he twitched, he was fidgety, he was all that. And all we do is we pump him with sugar, we give him a tablet, we sit there all day long playing these games, stimulating these games, and you take it away from them, and they're like this, like that, they can't sit still. Restless, anxious. You know, I want to say this to you, and this has been a problem for me, a struggle for me, that I'm praying that I will be overcoming in my life, especially in these last days of your life. How many know when you get older, you start evaluating stuff? Man, I did that. I was doing that back then. Maybe the reason we don't have much peace is because we're doing things God never told us to do. It's not righteousness. We're not living in the righteousness of God that is by faith in Jesus Christ. We're as disturbed as the world. We're as anxious as they are. Now, you might say, Pastor Charlie, okay, I got it. I'm going to go home. We're taking a day off. You know, we're going to take a day off. We're going to go to the coast. We're going to go on vacation. I'm going to tell you what will happen. Most of you, in a week or two, you'll revert right back to the way you were before. Because we don't change easily. We're stubborn. We're hard-headed. And I want to tell you this whole thing about quietness and rest is all about your relationship with the Father who's in heaven. And if you don't get that right, you're never going to experience quietness and peace. You won't know what it is. Perhaps the reason We are not obedient in this area because we're not listening to his voice. Look at this other verse here in Isaiah. I love this. Isaiah 30, verse 15. This is what the sovereign Lord, the Holy One of Israel, says. Only, somebody say only. Only in returning to me, sometimes they just say repentance. Only in returning to me and resting in me will you be saved. And notice this, in quietness and confidence is your strength. You want to know what it is to really be strong in the Lord? You're going to have to know that he is Lord. You're going to have to know that he's running the universe. We're going to see that here in just a minute. You're going to have to know that he's God. You're going to have to be still and know that he is God. This is the key, resting in the Lord. That's where you're going to get strong, is in this quietness before the Lord. This busy life is a disaster. And do you see those last words? I put them in italics of this verse. He's talking about, look, if you'll come back to me and you'll find your rest and your quietness in me, you're going to get strong spiritually. But notice what it says, but you would have none of it. I'm not going to do that. I'm already busy. I got a lot of stuff going on. I got to keep going. I can't stop. I got to keep this thing. I got to stay on the treadmill of life. I can't get off. No, you can get off. You just won't get off. A.J. Swoboda, Pastor A.J. Swoboda, he pastored a church in Portland, a large church, and ended up leaving. He's teaching as a professor down in one of the colleges in Southern California. A.J. Swoboda wrote a book called Subversive Sabbath. Sounds kind of contradictory, right? Subversive. But Sabbath comes and just messes up your life. Because it demands you to get rest, to be part of God's creation, and enjoy life. A.J. Swoboda took a whole month and he preached on Sabbath. He said, hey guys, take time off, rest. Do you know he almost had a revolt in his church there in Portland because there was all those yippity-uppity young people that they're driving, they're going to go, they're going to get their degree, they're going to get to their management position and get more and more responsibility and climb that ladder, and they're going to go on the corporate ladder. And here's the guy that came subverting all that, saying, hey, by the way, you can take rest and actually enjoy life. Do you know a lot of people left his church over that? We will have none of that. We're on the treadmill. Don't tell us to get off. It's a busy life. You remember that beautiful statement in Ecclesiastes chapter 2 when Solomon, it was at the end of his life, and he had lived his life, and he had experienced so many things, and he had experienced so many things and got all the T-shirts that he needed for all the things that he was wanting to try in life. He tried everything. Remember that? He says, I am going to sit down, and this is what he did in his life. He goes, I'm going to find out what is worthwhile to do under the sun. These few days. You guys realize we're only here for a few days. And it is something inside of us. I want to maximize my profitability, my productiveness, my fruitfulness in the few days that I have here. I don't want to waste time. And he wanted to find out, what should I be doing? I'm the wisest man, and I have more money than everybody else, so I can do stuff. Not like some of you. You can't do what he did because he had the money to do it, and some of you don't have the money to do it. But he had the money to do it, and he could do whatever he wanted. And he even said, I'm going to try everything. I didn't hold back doing anything that I wanted. Do you remember what he did? He went and he planted trees. He did building projects. He hired music. He got musical instruments. He got slaves. He got women. He got singers. He had gold. He had silver. He kept accumulating and doing more things. And he goes, woohoo, this is awesome. And he was accumulating all this stuff. And he goes, I had more and more. I had more and more. I had everything that I wanted. He had 700 wives, 300 concubines. Man, he had it all. He had everything that he wanted. And when he's finished, look at that second chapter. That second chapter is the United States of America. He says, when I was done, He said it was all vanity and a chasing after the wind. And he concluded and he said, man, he says, I hated life. And he goes, you know what? There's nothing better to do than enjoy the labor God has given you to do. And go home and eat and drink. And just fear the Lord and do what he tells you to do. Not run and run and run like a chicken with your head cut off. That's vanity. Chasing after the wind. In fact, after the service today, maybe one of you would join me. Let's go out here and let's catch the wind. Let's run out there and let's see if we can grab a hold of it. Somebody's got to join me in this. We're going to get a hold of the wind. We are going to get a hold of the wind. I promise you, we're going to get a hold of this wind. We're going to run out here, and you guys are going to see it, and we're going to grab a hold of some wind in our hands, and we're going to bring it back to you so you can feel some wind. You know? Yeah, you're going to record it on your phones, all right? Isn't that amazing, that language that he used? That is a vain pursuit. And so is busyness for the sake of busyness. It's so empty. It leaves you empty. I love this verse in Zephaniah here, moving towards a close here in about an hour. Zephaniah 3:17. No, I'm going to move fast here today. Zephaniah 3:17. Remember, Zephaniah is such a beautiful book about the day of the Lord, and he's talking about all these judgments that are going to come on the day of the Lord. It's a day of gloom. It's a day of darkness. It's a day of clouds. It's a day when Jesus comes in glory and power. He's going to come, and you read through those first few chapters, and there's only 3 chapters, and he gets to the end. Man, you're sitting there. You're all beat up from all the judgments of God and all that. And he closes out with this beautiful message of hope of how God views his people. Zephaniah 3:17, he says, the Lord your God is with you. That alone should free us up from so much of what we're trying to accomplish. He's mighty to save. He will take great delight in you. Have you ever thought of that? What Nicole was saying today was so beautiful, so pertinent. Like, do you really believe God takes great delight in you? Most of us, we can't believe that. If we're honest, right? We look in the mirror, we know that. We don't believe that. That he takes great delight in you. And then I love this phrase, he will quiet you with his love. I can tell you the main reason why we're so busy, we don't know how much he loves us. If we did, we wouldn't be so busy trying to impress him and everybody else with all that we're doing. He will rejoice over you with singing. I tell you, God can sing way better than you and me. His love quiets our soul. When we know him and when we're relating to him properly and we slow down enough to hear him, we begin to get quiet. And again, this is relational. This is about God. This is about your relationship with God. It's not just about taking a day off. It's not just about going to the coast and taking a few days off. No, this is all about you and I knowing the Father's love. Some of us here, we don't know it, so we run everywhere to try to earn it. And then there's this beautiful verse that all of you know. It's probably on your refrigerator. It might be somewhere in your house. Psalm 46, verse 10. All of us quote it. We know it, but nobody does it. Psalm 46:10. Be still. Hebrew imperative commands it. Be still and know that I am God. In fact, I want to say that people who are restless and busy and hurried and anxious, the reason they are is they don't know God. They don't take time because you've got to be still to really connect with him and know who he really is. And there are people that don't know. You don't get to know God by going faster and being busier. In fact, that's not the end of the verse. He says, look, I am exalted over the nations. I'm going to be exalted over the whole earth. Isn't that awesome to just be still and meditate and think on Jesus is at the right hand of God, the highest place of authority, the greatest position of all power. He's controlling the whole universe. Knowing that, being reassured of that He is your great high priest at God's right hand. He is exalted. You got to be still to really take that all in and get to know Him. One translation says, be quiet. He's not telling us to shut up. He's just saying you need to get quiet. You need to calm down. And then I love these verses in Psalms. Remember Psalm 95. It was a reflection on the wilderness generation. You know what the wilderness generation is like in the United States of America, it's like many of us today. You know what they did? They just went around and around and around and around out in the wilderness, and all they did was die off and get bit by snakes, and the earth opened up, and all kinds of terrible things happened to them, and they just died off and died. They went around and around. God told them, go into the promised land. No, we don't go there. Around and around and around and around. Go right there. It's right there. You can get into the promised land. They went around and around. That wilderness generation. Psalm 95 addresses. It's such an important psalm. And he says, today, if you will hear His voice, do not harden your heart. I've said this before. Some of you heard me preach it. I preached it at a church over there, Pastor Binion's church at Westside Church of God. I preached on this psalm here. I got to thinking, what would cause people to harden their heart if God speaks something to them? Why would we harden our heart? What if God says, I love you and I died for you? That wouldn't cause you to harden your heart. Why would people harden their heart when God is speaking to them? You know why? Because they don't like what He has to say. That's why they harden their heart. He just said something I don't like. So keep that in mind. What did He say? Because they wouldn't hear it. He says, they don't know my ways. He says, so I swore in my wrath, they're never going to enter my rest. And I tell you right now, as a busy Christian, having done this myself, having been an expert, I could write a book on being a busy Christian. I've done it a lot. I tell you right now, busy Christians don't know God's ways. And they'll never enter into His rest. Guess what? The writer of Hebrews, all of the third chapter and all of the fourth chapter, he takes Psalm 95 and quotes it and quotes it and quotes it, and he quotes it in parts and he quotes it in whole and he quotes it in parts and he quotes it in whole. He keeps drawing from Psalm 95. He keeps bringing that all up because he wants to talk to people here in the New Testament. And what does he say here in Hebrews chapter 3, verse 7 and 8 and 10 and 9? Today, if you hear His voice, do not harden your hearts. They have not known my ways, so I swore in my wrath, they shall not enter my rest. And then Hebrews 3:15 and 4:3 says, today, if you hear His voice, do not harden your hearts. So I swore in my wrath, they shall not enter my rest. And then he said it again in Hebrews chapter 4, verse 7, today, if you hear my voice, do not harden your heart. I'm thinking, man, can you pick another verse? You're saying this over and over again. No, because people won't hear God. And here in Hebrews 4:9 through 11, he says, there remains therefore a rest. You know why it remains there? Because nobody's taking advantage of it. There remains therefore a rest for the people of God. So he who has entered His rest has himself also ceased from his works as God does from His. Let us therefore be diligent to enter that rest, lest anyone fall according to the same example of disobedience, which were the Israelites. And then, was he talking to? Who was he talking to in Hebrews 3:8? And to whom did He swear that they would not enter His rest, but to those who did not obey? You know what? God wanted them to do more than enter a promised land. He wanted them to enter into His rest. A rest of faith and trust. And so why did I say all that? Psalm 95, Hebrews 3, Hebrews 4. He's quoting over and over and over again. What am I trying to say? I'm here to say this. You will never burn out being led by the Holy Spirit. And entering into the rest of faith involves listening to His voice and doing what He says. Maybe we're doing many things God never told us to do. Maybe God keeps speaking to you, but you and I won't listen. And so many of us have all this noise and busyness and anxiety all around us, drowning out our voice and His voice, I should say, His voice. You know what? There's been times in my life where I was running and my wife was telling me, slow down, and other people were telling me to slow down, and I say, I got this. I'm fine. I'm doing fine. People need me. I'm a codependent person. They need me and I need them. We're going to be stuck here together. And you know what? Then boom, I get sick for 10 days and I'm flat on my back. And finally, God is going to force you to rest. So there I am, flat on my back where I should have been in the first place if I would have listened to what He said. And I think God is speaking, and I felt that this morning in prayer and yesterday in prayer as I was praying for this congregation. There were some of you here, God's been telling you to slow down. He's been telling you to slow down. He's been telling you to slow down, and you just keep right on running and right on running and right on running, and He is speaking, and you're hardening your heart, and you continue to do those things that God never told you to do. And you're burned out emotionally. You're numb. Because you're not doing what He told you to do. I know we know the story of Mary and Martha, but it's classic, isn't it? As soon as Jesus walked in, what did Martha do? I feel the anointing to go into the kitchen. There she goes. I got to prepare some sandwiches. Jesus is here. And you hear pans and everything going on over there. Jesus didn't tell you to go make a sandwich. Mary did the right thing. She got down by the feet of Jesus to listen to what He had to say. You go read the end of Luke 10 there, those verses 38 to 42. What did He say? Martha got distracted, but Mary did what was right. She chose what was best. And Jesus even told Martha, the only thing that's needed, she's done it. She got at my feet and listen to what I had to say. So many of us are running and running and running. We pick up, somebody calls us, oh yeah, I'll be right, oh yeah, I'll do it, oh yeah, I'm Jesus, I'm the Messiah, I'll take care of it. Roger, some of you guys remember Roger Whitlow when he was pastoring there at Valley. And I remember he was teaching us young pastors one time many years ago. He goes, I'm going to tell you how not to burn out in the ministry. So we were all listening, waiting for him. He goes, here's the way you do it. No. Yes. That's what he taught us. When people come to you and say, hey, can you do this? No. Let your yes be yes and your no be no. Can you do this? No. I'm going to be with my wife. Can you do this? No. My son and I are going out. We're going to go watch a movie. Can you do it? No, I can't. No. The reason so many of us say no to our wife and our kids is because we've said yes to everybody else. Thank you, Roger, Pastor Roger. That word of advice. It's a hard lesson to learn, isn't it? Okay, I'm just going to read this because it's getting late and I see some of you are fidgety and you're anxious and you got to get going with your busy schedule for today. Woo! Somebody take me out to lunch today. Amen. I rebuke that in Jesus. I rebuke that in Jesus' name. Who said no? Man, you guys are rough crowd today. Oh man, that was a good one. Whoever did that, that was right on. You really got me on that one. Matthew 11, verse 28 through 30. I know you know this. I'm just going to read it. Come to me, Jesus says, all of you who are weary and carrying heavy burdens, says, I'm going to give you rest. That beach cabin vacation is wonderful. Please do it. I encourage you to go. But Jesus is the one that's going to give you rest. It says, take my yoke upon you. And I love these words. Let me teach you. Because I'm humble and gentle at heart. And you will find rest for your souls. For my yoke is easy to bear and the burden I give you is light. So we come to Jesus so we can be taught. We do what Mary said. We sit there and listen to what he has to say and then just do that. It's not just our bodies that need to rest. He says here it's our souls. You know, here's how I cheat. I cheat sometimes with rest. I tell my wife, today I'm taking the day off. I'm going to relax. I promise you, I'm going to lay down in bed over there by myself. Turn the fan on, kick back. My body's laying there and my mind is going 100 miles an hour. I got to do this. I got to call Crystal. I got to call Pastor Rick. I got to take care. I'm even writing notes down while I'm laying in bed of all the things I got to do. You know, that is the problem with so many of us. We can't slow down. We can slow down our bodies, but we can't slow down our head. We're too busy. We got too many things on the plate. We're going 100 miles an hour and there's no rest. I'll read another verse. This will be the last verse. Psalm 131, verses 1 through 2. I love these verses. This is beautiful. My heart is not proud, O Lord, nor are my eyes haughty. I do not concern myself with great matters or things too wonderful for me. He says, but I have stilled and quieted my soul like a weaned child with its mother. Like a weaned child is my soul within me. Another translation of that first verse says, I'm not interested in doing great things or trying to reach impossible goals. It's a hard lesson to learn, is it? This is a hard lesson to learn. I used to blame everybody. It's my dad's fault. He was a workaholic. It's that brother at church. Brothers and sisters, the truth is the reason we're so busy is because of you. You kept saying yes, and God maybe was telling you no. You control your schedule. I used to blame everybody else. It's my busy life. I have stuff to do. I got things to take care of. No, you just kept saying yes, 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 yes to everything. Why are we so insecure? Why won't we be quieted by his love? Let's pray. Father, thank you for letting us, helping us, renewing our minds, for us to live quiet lives. Lord, help us to stop, slow down, because we're real busy. And Lord, I know that many people here have very responsible jobs, and to whom much is given, much shall be required. But I also know, Father, we need to rest. We need to slow down. We need to unplug, because we're not machines. We're human beings. We're not machines. We're people created in the image of God. So help us today, Father. Help our church to slow down. Help us to not be busy, but to really work productively and be fruitful and produce what God called us to produce. Help us to live right today. In Jesus' mighty name, Amen. Amen.